Black Navy Admiral is denied first class, then shocks pilot with his rank. The fluorescent lights of Reagan National Airport cast a harsh glow over the bustling terminal as Admiral Marcus Thompson made his way through the crowd. Despite his distinguished 30-year career in the Navy and his current position as Deputy Chief of Naval Operations, he preferred to travel like any other civilian when not on official business. Today, dressed in a simple navy blue sweater and khaki pants, he blended seamlessly into the sea of travelers. Thompson adjusted his carry-on bag, his mind still processing the series of high-level meetings he'd attended earlier that day. The discussions about naval strategy and personnel welfare weighed heavily on his shoulders, but he'd learned long ago that true leadership meant carrying such burdens with grace. A slight smile crossed his weathered face as he remembered his father's words. Rank is temporary, but character is permanent. The terminal was particularly busy this evening, filled with the usual mix of hurried business people, tired families, and solo travelers all trying to navigate their way home. Thompson observed them all with quiet interest. In his civilian clothes, he was just another face in the crowd, exactly how he preferred it. Throughout his career, he had always believed that respect should be earned through actions and character, not demanded through rank or position. As he walked, Thompson reflected on his journey from a young ensign to his current position as a 3-star admiral. He'd risen through the ranks not by demanding respect, but by giving it freely to others, regardless of their station. His philosophy had always been simple: treat every person with the same dignity you'd expect for yourself. This approach had earned him deep respect among both his superiors and subordinates, though few would recognize him out of uniform. The evening air was thick with the sound of rolling luggage, announcement chimes, and the constant murmur of conversations in various languages. Thompson checked his watch, still plenty of time before his flight. He had deliberately chosen a commercial flight instead of military transport, a practice he'd maintained whenever possible. Keep your feet on the ground, his mentor had once advised, and never forget what it's like to be just another person in line. Making his way to the check-in counter, Thompson noticed the growing tension in the air. The flight seemed overbooked, judging by the frustrated faces of passengers gathered around the desk. He could hear snippets of heated conversations and saw the strain on the airline staff's faces. Years of command had taught him to read situations quickly, and this one was deteriorating rapidly. Little did he know that this ordinary evening would soon transform into a powerful lesson about prejudice, privilege, and the complex interplay between appearance and respect. As he approached the check-in counter, Admiral Thompson was about to become part of a story that would challenge his perspectives on rank, respect, and the subtle forms of discrimination that persist in our society. The fluorescent lights continued their steady hum overhead as he joined the line, his first-class ticket tucked securely in his jacket pocket. In these moments of waiting, Thompson's mind drifted to the countless times he'd witnessed how differently people were treated based on their appearance or perceived status. Yet, nothing could have prepared him for what was about to unfold, a situation that would test not only his patience, but also his deeply held beliefs about leadership and human dignity. As the line inched forward, Thompson observed the interactions ahead of him with the same careful attention he'd applied to military operations throughout his career. Each exchange between airline staff and passengers told its own story, and as trained eye caught subtle details that others might miss. These observations would prove crucial in the events that were about to unfold, though he didn't know it yet. The Admiral's simple decision to travel as a civilian was about to become the catalyst for a powerful lesson in judgment, respect, and the often invisible barriers that divide our society. As he finally reached the front of the line, the stage was set for a confrontation that would leave an indelible mark on everyone involved. "Next, please." The attendant's voice carried a note of fatigue as Admiral Thompson stepped forward. He presented his first-class ticket and ID with a warm smile, having noticed the strain evident on the young woman's face after hours of dealing with frustrated travelers. The attendant barely glanced at his documents before her expression shifted from tired indifference to barely concealed skepticism. "I'm sorry, sir, but it appears your seat has been reassigned due to overbooking," she stated flatly, her eyes already drifting to the passengers behind him. Thompson blinked, momentarily taken aback. "I have a confirmed first-class ticket," he replied calmly, sliding the documentation forward again. "And I checked in online this morning. As I said, we're overbooked," she repeated, this time with an edge of dismissal. "We can offer you a seat in economy, or you can take the next flight." Behind him, Thompson heard the distinctive sound of another passenger being directed to first class. Years of command experience had taught Thompson to observe patterns, and this one was becoming painfully clear. He had watched as several other passengers, all in business attire, had been processed smoothly for first class just minutes earlier. His casual sweater and khakis, he realized, had led to assumptions that shouldn't have been made. "I'd like to speak with your supervisor, please," Thompson requested, maintaining his composed demeanor. His voice carried the quiet authority that had commanded aircraft carriers, though he kept his tone respectful. The attendant's sigh was audible as she reached for her phone, her body language suggesting this was merely a formality to placate a difficult customer. Moments later, a supervisor appeared, his name tag reading Mr. Roberts. "Is there a problem here?" Roberts asked, his tone suggesting he'd already decided there wasn't one. "Yes," Thompson replied evenly. "I have a confirmed first-class ticket, checked in this morning, and I'm being told my seat has been reassigned without explanation, while other passengers are still being checked in a first class." Roberts barely glanced at the ticket. "Sir, as my colleague explained, the flight is overbooked. We have to make certain accommodations based on our frequent flyer status and other factors." Thompson noticed how Roberts' eyes skimmed over his casual attire, making the same assumptions as his colleague. The Admiral had faced similar prejudgments before, but this time, something deeper was at stake. This wasn't about his comfort in first class. It was about the subtle discrimination he'd observed throughout his career, often directed at others who lacked the rank to challenge it. "Mr. Roberts," Thompson said, his voice taking on the quiet intensity that had commanded attention in Pentagon briefings, "I believe there's been a misunderstanding. I'd like to speak with the captain of this flight." "The captain is preparing for departure and cannot be disturbed for seating issues," Roberts replied dismissively. Thompson reached into his pocket and retrieved his military ID. "I am Admiral Marcus Thompson, Deputy Chief of Naval Operations, and I'm not concerned about the seat. I'm concerned about what appears to be systematic discrimination in your boarding process." The change in the supervisor's demeanor was immediate and dramatic. The color drained from his face as he recognized the name and rank. Behind them, other passengers had fallen silent, sensing the shift in the atmosphere. I'll get the captain right away, Admiral," Robert stammered, suddenly finding his feet. As they waited, Thompson maintained his calm exterior, though inside his mind was racing. This moment had transformed from a personal inconvenience into something far more significant, a teachable moment about prejudice, respect, and the arbitrary nature of how we judge others. The incident was drawing attention now. Other passengers watched with interest as the situation unfolded, some recording with their phones, others whispering among themselves. Thompson stood quietly, his posture relaxed but commanding, a living example of the dignity he'd always tried to instill in his officers. This confrontation wasn't just about a first-class seat anymore. It had become a mirror reflecting deeper societal issues, the way we judge people based on appearance, the differential treatment that occurs countless times daily, and the privilege that comes with rank and status. As he waited for the captain, Thompson knew this evening would become a story he would share many times in the future, not as a tale of personal vindication, but as a lesson about the importance of treating every individual with equal respect and dignity. Captain James Mitchell emerged from the cockpit with purposeful strides, his experienced eyes immediately scanning the situation before him. The moment he spotted Admiral Thompson, recognition flickered across his face. Not from the military ID now visible, but from a joint operation they'd both been part of years ago. "Admiral Thompson, sir?" Captain Mitchell's voice carried genuine respect as he approached. "I had no idea you were on our manifest today." He extended his hand in greeting, then turned to address his ground crew with a mixture of professional courtesy and barely contained disappointment. The terminal had grown unusually quiet. Passengers who moments ago were absorbed in their phones or conversations now watched the scene unfold with rapt attention. The contrast between the previous treatment and the current response was stark and telling. "Mr. Roberts," Captain Mitchell addressed the supervisor, who was now visibly uncomfortable. "Admiral Thompson's seat assignment will remain as originally booked. Please ensure his boarding pass is properly issued." Turning back to Thompson, he added, "Sir, I apologize for this unfortunate situation. Would you join me for a moment?" As they stepped aside, Thompson could hear the hurried whispers and see the shocked expressions of the airline staff who had dismissed him minutes earlier. The Admiral followed Captain Mitchell to a quieter area of the terminal, away from the growing crowd of onlookers. "Admiral, I served under your command during Operation Pacific Shield," Mitchell explained, his voice carrying both respect and regret. "Your leadership during that crisis saved countless lives. This is not how any passenger should be treated, let alone someone of your distinction." Thompson nodded thoughtfully. "Captain, this isn't about my rank or our shared history. What concerns me is that this appears to be a systemic issue. If this is happening to me in civilian clothes, imagine how many others face similar treatment without the ability to challenge it." The captain's face grew serious as he absorbed the Admiral's words. "You're absolutely right, sir. This needs to be addressed at a structural level." He paused, then added, "With your permission, I'd like to use this incident as a training example for our crew." Back at the check-in counter, the atmosphere had transformed completely. The attendant who had initially dismissed Thompson now couldn't meet his eyes as she processed his correct boarding pass, her hands trembling slightly. Other passengers watched the scene with a mixture of satisfaction and reflection, some nodding in understanding as they witnessed justice being served. As Thompson finally made his way to the gate, he overheard snippets of conversations among the waiting passengers. "Did you see how they treated him before they knew who he was? Makes you wonder how many others." The incident had sparked exactly the kind of dialogue he hoped it would. During the boarding process, the flight crew's behavior had shifted dramatically, not just toward Thompson, but toward every passenger. It was as if his presence had reminded them of the importance of treating each person with dignity, regardless of their appearance or perceived status. Once settled in his rightful seat, Thompson received a personal visit from Captain Mitchell. "Sir, I've initiated a formal review of our customer service protocols. Your experience today has highlighted issues that need immediate attention." Thompson appreciated the gesture, but felt a tinge of irony. "Thank you, Captain, but consider this. Would this review be happening if I weren't an admiral? That's the real question we need to address." The captain's expression showed he understood the deeper implications of Thompson's words. This wasn't just about one incident or one airline's policies. It was about the broader issue of how we judge and treat others based on superficial observations. As the flight prepared for takeoff, Thompson noticed subtle changes in the crew's interactions with other passengers. They were more attentive, more respectful, more conscious of their behavior. Perhaps this evening's events had already begun to create positive change, however small. Looking out the window as the plane taxied to the runway, Thompson reflected on how this incident would become part of his legacy, not as a story of personal vindication, but as a powerful lesson about the importance of looking beyond appearances and treating every individual with the respect they deserve. The engines roared to life, and as the aircraft lifted into the darkening sky, Thompson knew that this story would serve a greater purpose in the ongoing battle against prejudice and discrimination. Sometimes he realized the most powerful lessons come from the most unexpected moments. In the quiet hours following the airport incident, Admiral Marcus Thompson sat in his study at home, the events of the evening still vivid in his mind. The soft glow of his desk lamp illuminated the naval decorations on the wall, medals, certificates, and photographs that chronicled his distinguished career. Yet tonight, these symbols of achievement carried a different weight. Taking out his leather-bound journal, a habit he'd maintained since his days as a young officer, Thompson began to write, attempting to distill the deeper implications of what had transpired. Today, he wrote, "I witnessed firsthand how privilege and prejudice intersect in ways that many of us in positions of power often overlook." The irony wasn't lost on him. For 30 years, He had commanded ships and led thousands of sailors, earning respect through his actions and leadership. Yet in civilian clothes, without the visible trappings of his rank, he had been deemed unworthy of the same respect afforded to others. The experience had forced him to confront uncomfortable truths about society's inherent biases. Thompson thought about the young sailors under his command, particularly those from minority backgrounds who had shared stories of similar treatment. How many times had they faced such discrimination without the shield of rank to protect them? How many had suffered in silence, lacking the authority to challenge their treatment? The uniform, he wrote, can both reveal and conceal. It reveals our service and rank, but sometimes conceals the more subtle forms of discrimination that persist in our society. Today, without it, I saw the world through a different lens. Rising from his desk, Thompson walked to the window overlooking his garden. The moon cast long shadows across the carefully tended flowers, a hobby he'd picked up from his late wife. She had always told him that true character shows in how you treat others when you think no one is watching. The Admiral's thoughts turned to the practical implications of his experience. Tomorrow, he would begin drafting new training protocols for naval leadership programs, incorporating lessons about unconscious bias and the importance of treating everyone with equal dignity. The incident would become a teaching tool, not just about discrimination, but about the responsibility that comes with authority. He thought about Captain Mitchell's immediate recognition and response. While appreciative of the captain's professionalism, Thompson couldn't shake the discomfort of knowing that the situation was resolved primarily because of his rank. The true measure of our progress, he wrote, will be when such respect is extended to all, regardless of their status or appearance. The incident had reinforced something Thompson had always believed, but now understood more deeply. Leadership isn't about the power you wield, but about the example you set. Every interaction, every decision, every moment of choosing how to treat others, these were the real tests of character. Returning to his journal, Thompson outlined his commitments for the future. He would use his position to advocate for systemic changes, not just in the military, but in civilian institutions as well. He would share this story, not as a personal grievance, but as a catalyst for discussion about the subtle ways discrimination manifests in daily life. Perhaps, he wrote, the most valuable lesson from today is that real change requires more than just policies and procedures. It demands a fundamental shift in how we see and value each other as human beings. The Admiral thought about the other passengers who had witnessed the incident. Would they reflect on their own biases? Would they speak up the next time they witnessed similar discrimination? He hoped that his experience would create ripples of change, encouraging others to examine their own prejudices and stand up against discrimination in all its forms. As midnight approached, Thompson closed his journal and prepared for bed. Tomorrow would bring new challenges and opportunities to put these lessons into practice. The incident at the airport, though uncomfortable, had reinforced his lifelong commitment to leading by example and fighting for equality. The true test of leadership, he wrote in his final entry for the night, is not in the rank we achieve, but in how we use our position to lift others up. Every person, regardless of their appearance or status, deserves to be treated with dignity and respect. This is not just a military value, it is a human one. The experience had reminded him that the battle for equality and respect is fought not just in grand gestures or official policies, but in the small, daily interactions that shape our society. As he finally retired for the night, Admiral Thompson knew that his story would become part of a larger narrative about change, justice, and the ongoing struggle for true equality. 6 months after the airport incident, Admiral Marcus Thompson stood before a packed auditorium at the Naval Leadership Academy. The story of his experience had spread far beyond its original context, becoming a powerful teaching tool across military and civilian organizations alike. The airline had implemented comprehensive bias training programs, using the incident as a case study. Captain Mitchell had become an advocate for change within the commercial aviation industry, regularly speaking about the importance of equitable treatment for all passengers. But the most significant changes came from unexpected places. The video recorded by one of the passengers that day had gone viral, sparking a national conversation about implicit bias and privilege. Thompson had received thousands of letters from people sharing similar experiences, many finding courage in his story to speak up against discrimination in their own lives. In the military, Thompson's experience had led to the creation of the Civilian Perspective Initiative, a program requiring senior officers to occasionally travel and interact in civilian settings without their uniforms or rank indicators. The program aimed to maintain their connection to the everyday experiences of those they served and protected. As he concluded his speech that day, Thompson shared a final reflection. That evening at the airport taught me that true respect isn't earned through ranks or titles. It's a fundamental right that every human being deserves. The stars on my shoulder mean nothing if I don't use them to lift others up. The young officers in the audience listened intently as he continued. Your rank will open doors, but your character will define what you do once you walk through them. Remember, the most powerful command you can ever give is the example you set. After the speech, a young ensign approached Thompson with tears in her eyes. "Admiral," she said, "my father faces similar treatment every day because of how he looks. Thank you for showing us that speaking up matters, regardless of our rank." Thompson smiled, remembering his own father's words about character being permanent. The incident that began as a personal slight had transformed into something far more meaningful, a catalyst for change, a lesson in leadership, and a reminder that the fight for dignity and respect never ends. As he left the auditorium that evening, Thompson noticed a framed quote that hadn't been there before, now prominently displayed at the entrance. It read, "Rank is temporary, but character is permanent. Respect is not a privilege to be earned, but a right to be protected." Admiral Marcus Thompson. The words served as a daily reminder to every person who passed through those doors that true leadership begins with recognizing the inherent dignity in every human being. The story of that evening at the airport would continue to inspire change, one person at a time, proving that sometimes the most powerful lessons come disguised as moments of adversity. And somewhere, in airports and offices across the country, people began to look at each other a little differently, judge a little less quickly, and treat each other with a little more respect, proving that one person's stand for dignity could indeed create ripples of change across the ocean of humanity.
Don't forget to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel so we can keep bringing you the best stories.